Good afternoon, everyone. This is Jeff Rumburg. I'm a managing partner with MetricNet, and I will be your host for today's information briefing on the service desk benchmark for medical care. I want to welcome all of you and thank you for joining in our briefing today. Now, before we get started, I have just a few administrative announcements to make. We have quite a few people on the call today, so during the presentation, all of you will be in listen-only mode. However, if you have any questions during the presentation, you can type them in the dialog box that appears in the lower right corner of your screen, and I will answer those questions at the conclusion of our presentation today. This presentation will run about 40 to 45 minutes with Q&A. So for those who have other commitments later in the day, I should be wrapped up by about 2:45 p.m. Eastern Time in the United States. Now, some of you on the call today have worked with MetricNet in the past, and many of you have been to our website before. But for those who are not familiar with MetricNet, let me give you just a brief introduction. MetricNet's core business is benchmarking. We perform benchmarks for a variety of different industries and functional areas. My role in the company is to manage the service desk, desktop support, and call center benchmarks and client relationships for MetricNet. Now, I've been at this for a long time. For 25 years now, I've had the opportunity to work with nearly 3,000 service and support organizations, and I've worked on nearly 3,000 service desk benchmarks. Now, one result of that is that MetricNet now has the largest database of process and performance indicators in the world for IT service and support. We track more than 30 KPIs in the service desk area, everything from customer satisfaction and first contact resolution rate to cost per contact and speed of answer. We also track and have defined nearly 80 industry best practices. These best practices address everything from IT service and support strategy, to technology, to human resource management, and process and procedure. Now, our clients are companies that are familiar to many of you. Companies shown on this page that you're familiar with: American Express, Hewlett-Packard, General Motors. In fact, more than half of the Fortune 500 use MetricNet benchmarks, including many that are in your industry. Companies like Advocate Healthcare, Group Health Cooperative, Sisters of Mercy, Wellstar, DaVita, and many others. Let's shift gears now and talk specifically about MetricNet's service desk benchmark for medical care. The first question that we are typically asked is, why have we syndicated a benchmark that is specific to the medical care industry? And there's two reasons for that. The first is that the demand is just huge. When we look at our website traffic and we look at the inquiries that we get from different industries who are interested in doing a service desk benchmark, the largest sector by far is the healthcare industry. So we're meeting a demand. The demand for these benchmarks in your industry is quite large. Second reason we've syndicated this benchmark is because, as you all know, there are unique characteristics to providing IT service and support in this vertical market. You have a very broad spectrum of technologies that you are expected to support, everything from smartphones, to tablet computers, desktop computers, laptop computers, to medical imaging equipment and laboratory equipment. There's no other industry where you're expected to support as broad an array of infrastructure, hardware devices, and software applications. Your customers also typically are broadly distributed geographically, and this presents unique challenges. Many of your organizations are distributed across many states or even multiple countries. And in this environment, service levels are critical. If you're receiving calls, for example, from doctors or nurses or urgent care centers or ERs, emergency rooms, you know that the service levels are more critical in this environment than they are for most other vertical markets, for most other industries. Now, before we get into the specifics of the project, let's talk a little bit about the project timeline. Now, we actually launched the project in November of 2013. We're currently still in what we call the sign-up and the registration phase of the project, and that will go right up until the end of March. However, for those of you who are participating in the benchmark, your data collection documents are due on March 31st, and I'll explain what that means momentarily. MetricNet will take the month of April to put together everybody's benchmarking report, and then in May we will schedule individual meetings with each one of you to present the results of your benchmark. I'll go through this timeline once again at the end of our presentation. But just remember that right now we're in the sign-up and registration phase, but we do need your data collection document by the 31st of March. Now the process will unfold in 6 modules. These are not necessarily completed sequentially. In fact, several of these modules are done simultaneously in parallel with each other. But we start with data collection. We call that the baselining process. Then we go to the benchmarking and gap analysis phase of the project. Simultaneous with that, we develop a unique balanced scorecard for each company that participates in this benchmark. We will conduct a unique best practices process self-assessment for each one of you. We will develop strategies for improved performance, and then document our work, document the results and the methodology and the data in a benchmarking report that will be unique and customized for each healthcare organization that participates in this benchmark. Let's drill down a little bit more in each one of these modules, starting with the project kickoff. Once you sign up for this benchmark, once you register, we'll get in contact with you and schedule a time to do a project kickoff meeting. We'll do that through GoToMeeting, much like the presentation that we're going through right now. And the purpose of that meeting is to introduce MetricNet to your project team or the point of contact within your company that we will be interfacing and interacting with. We'll discuss the project schedule, we'll distribute the data collection document, and we'll answer any questions that you and your team have about the project. Now the data collection document is an Excel format. Let me show you what that looks like. Each one of you will be asked to complete as best you can, to the best of your ability, complete as thoroughly as you can the benchmarking data collection document, starting with some general information on the location and hours of operation for your contact center, for your service desk, the workload profile broken down by channel, number of contacts in voice, voicemail, email, fax, web chat, and so on, your annual operating expense. If you outsource your service desk, we need to know what the price is that you're paying to your outsourcer. Your head count broken down into these generic categories, technician level 1, level 2, level 3, supervisors, managers, etc. Your operational performance, things like customer satisfaction, average speed of answer, and first contact resolution rate. Now, I want to be clear that we don't expect these questionnaires to come back 100% complete. In fact, I don't think I've ever been involved in a benchmark. I've been involved in a lot of them where we get 100% complete data from that organization. There are likely to be some metrics that you may not track. Agent occupancy, for example, is a metric that only about half of all service desks track. Likewise, schedule adherence is a metric that not all service desks track. Don't worry about that. If you can't complete the data collection form in its entirety, we can still benchmark you very effectively. In fact, we expect these to come back not being 100% complete. We ask you to provide us some information on your technology, such as your trouble ticket system, your automatic call distributor, your IVR, your knowledge management system if you have one, and so on. And then any additional information that you can provide. For example, service level agreements, workflow diagrams, copies of your customer survey, and the like. Now our clients tell us that on average it takes anywhere from 5 to 8 hours to complete the data collection form. So it's not an insignificant amount of time, but at the same time, it's not a task that's going to keep you tied up for days and days, let alone weeks and weeks. Now, once we have your benchmarking data, we can get into the benchmarking phase of the project. Now, most of you, given that you're on this call, probably know what benchmarking is all about. But let me review it very quickly for you. Benchmarking involves comparison. We will compare your service desk performance to the performance of the other service desks that participate in this benchmark. That comparison by itself is interesting, but it is not very helpful unless it becomes diagnostic. And that's what the second piece of benchmarking is all about. When we identify a gap in your performance, whether it's in cost or quality or productivity, customer satisfaction, or anything else, we need to diagnose why that gap exists. Because if we can get to the underlying causes of the negative performance gaps in your service and support environment, we can develop recommendations that enable you to improve that performance, close that gap, if you will. Now, the power of benchmarking is this. Any company can improve its performance, and most companies do improve over time. They improve incrementally through trial and error. But benchmarking enables you to build upon the proven best practices of the industry's superior performers and improve not at an evolutionary pace, but at a revolutionary pace. We're talking about achieving world-class performance in a matter of weeks, not in months or, worse yet, in years. That's the real power of benchmarking. And the reason we have syndicated this benchmark, as I mentioned earlier, there's huge demand in your industry to do this type of benchmark. And because we will have so many companies participating in the benchmark, we expect there to be a significant amount of statistical validity and significance in the benchmarking comparison and results. Now, the key performance indicators included in the benchmark are summarized here on page 16. We organize them into 6 categories. There are going to be cost metrics, quality metrics, productivity metrics, technician metrics, service level metrics, and call handling metrics. Now, if you manage your service desk internally, we'll be looking at metrics like cost per contact and cost per minute of handle time. If you have outsourced your service desk, we will look at your price per contact and price per minute of handle time. We consider first level resolution rate to be a cost metric because the higher that number is, the lower your total cost of ownership for service and support will be. If you've been on our webcast in the past, you know why. Because when you push a ticket from level 1 out to desktop support, it gets a lot more costly to resolve at desktop support. And if you push it even further, say to N-level support, say a NOC or an applications group, or a vendor or field support, the cost escalates even more. So we consider first level resolution rate to be a cost metric. Now, some people ask us, why do we look at so many KPIs when we do a benchmark? And the reason is that we want these benchmarks to be diagnostic. So if we identify, for example, a gap in cost per contact, we know that typically that's going to be related to some productivity. Perhaps your technician utilization is low, or perhaps your ratio of technicians to total headcount is also low, or perhaps your salaries are simply higher than they are for the average in the industry. We don't want to just identify performance gaps, both positive and negative. We want to diagnose them so that you can perpetuate the positive performance and mitigate and eliminate over time the negative performance gaps. Now, in the next few pages, what I'm going to do is show you some sample output from the benchmarking report. A little bit later, I'll show you how you can look at a complete sample report. But it's important to point out that we're going to be presenting the benchmarking data from this benchmark in a variety of different formats. What I'm showing here on page 17 is a data table. It's a very dense slide. I don't expect you to absorb all of this information in the 1 or 2 minutes that we'll spend on this page. But I do want to point out that this is one way that we do present benchmarking information. You can see that the 6 different types of metrics are shown in the left column, same 6 that were in these boxes here. The KPIs themselves are in the second column from the left. Your company's performance will be shown in the third column from the left. And then for the peer group, the companies that participate in this benchmark, we're going to show you the peer group statistics, the average performance for the peer group, the minimum in the peer group, median meaning half the data points are above, half the data points are below, which is different than the arithmetic average, and then the maximum for the peer group. Now, some people relate to a slide like this very well. They quickly go down the list and see, okay, my cost per contact is below average, my customer satisfaction is above average, so that's good. Cost and quality are fairly important. You can very quickly scan this chart and find out where your strengths and where your weaknesses are. However, rest assured that we are going to present the very same data in a variety of different formats, including these quartile charts. What we do is we divide the companies who participate in this benchmark up into 4 quartiles. The top quartile is always the best performing 1/4 of the companies who participate. Second quartile is always the second group of 15 or however many companies, 15 or 20 companies. The third group, that would be if we have 60 participating in the benchmark, we'd have 15 in each quartile. The third quartile would have the next group of 15 companies, and the fourth quartile would have the final group of 15 companies. We highlight the cell that your service desk is in so that you can very quickly at a glance see, okay, we're in the first quadrant or quartile for our cost per contact, second quartile for cost per minute of handle time, and so on. Same thing with productivity metrics, as well as the service level, quality, technician, and contact handling metrics. We're going to show you which quartile you're in for each one of these key performance indicators. Now, we're also going to show you for every KPI, all 20+ key performance indicators in the benchmark, we're going to show you how you stack up relative to the other companies included in the benchmark. In this particular case, our hypothetical company is XYZ. Their customer satisfaction was 87.6%. They will always be the orange bar on these charts. The other companies are designated simply with a number. Now, you're going to know which companies are in the benchmark, but you're not going to know, for example, that company 15 is DaVita and company 11 is HCA. You're simply not going to know that. That's part of the deal here, is that we're not going to identify companies in the report. You will know, for example, that you're company number 13 in your report, for example. You'll know that all of the orange bars represent your company's data. And again, you'll know which companies are in the benchmark. You're just not going to know, for example, what company number 3 is, what company number 13 or number 21 is. But we do present the data in these bar charts because some people are very interested in seeing for each key performance indicator, what does the distribution of data look like? The orange dashed line that goes across the middle here always represents the average for the benchmarking peer group. And we always arrange these going from left to right, good to bad. So in this particular case, the higher your customer satisfaction, the better. Now on a chart like average speed of answer, it would be just the opposite. The lower the average speed of answer, the better. So going left to right, you're going to see an ascending distribution as opposed to a descending distribution, which you see on this page. We're also going to show each company how they stack up on a two-dimensional chart broken down into quadrants. This upper right-hand quadrant is where you want to be. This is where you are both low cost and high quality. And this is the holy grail for any service and support organization. Whether you're a service desk, a desktop support, a call center, or anything else, you want to be in this upper right-hand quadrant where you are both efficient and effective. For those service desks that end up in this lower right quadrant, it says that your costs are low, but your quality is also low. And over time, what you want to be doing is moving up this chart. Those that are in the upper left-hand quadrant, it says that your quality is good, but your costs are also high. And what you want to be doing over time is moving to the right on this chart to get into the upper right-hand quadrant. And for those that are in the lower left, that's the worst of all worlds. This is where you are both high cost and low quality. And your benchmark is going to communicate that, but it's also going to tell you exactly what you need to do to move up and to the right. That is, reduce your cost over time, this axis, the x-axis, and also improve your quality over time, the y-axis. So over time, every organization will be given an action plan that shows how you can either maintain your position in the upper right-hand quadrant or you can move into that position in the upper right-hand quadrant. Let's talk about the balanced scorecard now, because every one of you will receive a customized balanced scorecard as part of your benchmark. We've selected 6 metrics to include in the scorecard. These 6 metrics represent those that we believe to be the most important for service and support at level 1. We've got cost per contact, customer satisfaction, which is a quality metric, technician utilization, which is an efficiency metric, FCR, first contact resolution rate, which is a contact handling metric, technician job satisfaction, and percent of calls answered in 30 seconds. Once again, I want to caution you, please don't worry if some of these metrics you don't track. That's okay. We can still benchmark you very effectively, and we can still create a balanced scorecard for you. If you are missing some of these metrics, let's say, for example, you don't track first contact resolution rate, one of the recommendations you're going to see in your benchmarking report is that you really need to start tracking that because it is a fairly important metric. But don't worry if some of these metrics you're not tracking right now. As I mentioned, we can still benchmark you very effectively regardless of which metrics you may or may not have. The way the scorecard works is this. We put a weight on each one of these metrics according to its relative importance. You can see that we overweight cost and customer satisfaction because these are the foundation metrics. Everything you do boils down to either containing costs or driving a higher quality customer experience. So we overweight those. Now this is a judgment call. I'm the first to admit that. But when you add these together, it should end up to be 100%. Then for this particular benchmark, we're going to show you the worst case performance of all the companies that are participating and the best case performance of the companies that are participating. And by the way, it's not necessarily the same company that has the worst performance for every metric. That never is the case, just as it's never the case where the best performer is always the same company. These simply represent for the entire benchmarking peer group what was the best score on each of these 6 metrics and what was the worst score on each of these 6 metrics. You then put your performance here, or MetricNet will do that for you when we create your unique balanced scorecard. We'll then calculate a metric score, and here's how we do that. It's an interpolation formula. We look at the worst case, we subtract your actual performance, that becomes the numerator of the ratio. The denominator is worst case minus best case, or the range. So this gives you a number between 0 and 100%. If you're at 100%, it says that you have the best score in the benchmarking peer group, as this company does here for technician job satisfaction. If you have a score of 0, it says you have the worst score of all companies in the benchmark, which this company does for first contact resolution rate. If you're somewhere in between those two extremes, it says you are neither the worst nor the best, but this number between 0 and 100% represents how far along the path you are from the worst case to the best case. final step in constructing the scorecard is to multiply your metric score by the metric weighting to come up with a balanced score for each of these metrics. And when we add these together, we come up with a single overall score for your service desk. Now, people look at this and say, well, what does 62% mean? Well, just for comparison purposes, when we run literally hundreds of service desks through this algorithm, the average score is only 50%. And we get a nice normal distribution, a bell-shaped curve centered right over 50% with tails running off to the right above 70% and tails running off to the left below 30%. So typically, if you're above 50%, you're at least in the second quartile. And if you're above 62%, typically you're in the first quartile. Conversely, if you're under 50%, you're going to be in the third or fourth quartile. If you're below 38%, typically you are in the fourth quartile. Now, the real value of this is that it enables you to compare your performance to the performance of the other service desks that participate in this benchmark. Here's the 62.1% we just calculated. Here it is over here again, 62.1%. Our hypothetical company XYZ is painted orange here. And this will show you overall how your performance compares to the other companies in this benchmark. Now look at what we've done here. We've aggregated a disparate set of metrics related to cost and quality, productivity, call handling, technician, and service levels. These have different units. Some have units of dollars, some have units of percent, some have units of seconds. We've rolled them together, normalized them, and aggregated them into a single overall measure of performance that we can then use to show how you compare to the other companies that participate in this benchmark. You can also use your scorecard to track and trend your performance over time. You know, communicating performance in this business is somewhat problematic in this respect. There's a lot of key performance indicators. You saw the list back here, more than 20 KPIs included in this benchmark. And when you're talking particularly to a layperson and you say, hey, our cost per call was down this month, but our customer satisfaction was also down this month. Well, are you better off or are you worse off than you were last month? Or if you say, hey, our first contact resolution rate is up, but our cost is also up this month. Well, are you better off or are you worse off? You don't really know unless you engage in something like the balanced scorecard, unless you adopt this and track it over time. Because if the number is going up over time, that's a good thing. It says, on average, when we aggregate and roll together all these disparate performance indicators, if the number is going up, your performance is improving over time. By contrast, if the number is going down, just the opposite is happening, and your performance is deteriorating over time. In this particular case, this is real data. Each of these blue bars represents the monthly update to a balanced scorecard for service desks that we worked with last year. The purple background represents the trailing 12-month average. Once again, every company that participates in this benchmark will receive a customized balanced scorecard that you can use in the future to track and trend your performance. And in the benchmark that you'll be participating in, you can see exactly how you stack up to the other companies that are also in this benchmark. Now, you've probably heard the old adage that process drives performance, and it's very true. If we're going to do a benchmark and show you how your quantitative performance, things like cost per contact and speed of answer and first call resolution rate and customer satisfaction, if we're going to show you how those compare to others, we've got to be able to explain how you can improve over time, and in particular, how you can close any negative performance gaps. And that's where this process assessment comes in, because process does drive performance. I mentioned very early on that our benchmarking database tracks more than 70 industry best practices related to IT service and support strategy, human resource management, process, technology, performance measurement, and stakeholder communication. In this part of the project, each of you will be asked to complete a 72-question questionnaire. It only takes about an hour. It goes pretty quickly. But for each of those 72 questions, you're going to answer on a scale of 1 to 5 how mature you think you are. If you've never heard of the best practice, you're going to say, well, you know, give ourselves a 1. If you know about it, but you have not implemented it, you're going to give yourself a 2. If you're excellent, you believe that you're applying the best practice in a world-class fashion, you're going to give yourself a 5. So this is an example of what you might see in the strategy area. The first best practice is that the service desk has a well-defined mission, vision, and strategy. The vision and strategy are well documented and communicated to key stakeholders in the organization. Well, what would you score yourself? This particular company gave themselves a 2. Now you're going to answer 72 questions just like that. And we're going to show you how you stack up relative to the other companies who also participate in this benchmark. So for all the strategy success factors, how do you stack up on a scale of 1 to 5? Same thing with human resource management, process, technology, performance measurement, and communication. And once again, I want to emphasize that process drives performance, and that's the purpose of this particular part of the benchmark. So you'll be able to see how mature your processes are relative to the other companies that participate. Our hypothetical company here, XYZ, you can see the orange bar here. They scored 217 out of a possible 360 points. We consider a world-class performer to be at 288 points, which means that for all 72 best practices, you score 4 or above. So 4 times 72 gets you to 288. That's what this green bar is here. The red line, once again, red dashed line, represents the average for this particular peer group of roughly 100 service desks. Then we're going to show you how you stack up on a two-dimensional chart where we put your process assessment score, ranges from 72 to 360. We're going to put that on the x-axis, and we're going to put your balanced score from the balanced scorecard on the y-axis. Remember, the balanced score was 62.1%. Process assessment score, 217.5. That's what we just showed you. And then going back to the balanced score, 62.1%. When we put that on this two-dimensional chart, it very starkly illustrates how process does drive performance. Your performance is measured by the balanced scorecard. Your process maturity shown on the x-axis. You can see on this chart how there is a correlation. It's not just a correlation, it's a cause and effect relationship. As your processes mature, you would expect your balanced score to improve. And that's exactly what has happened here. Your data point will be the red one here. Again, each of you are going to receive a customized benchmarking report, and that will show you exactly how you stack up. What is your process maturity assessment score, and what does your balanced score look like? Okay, now once we have created the scorecard, done the benchmarking comparison, developed the process maturity assessment, what we're going to do is develop a set of unique and customized recommendations for each company that participates in this benchmark. Now, the recommendations tend to fall into one of 6 categories. It could be related to IT service and support strategy, human resource management, call handling processes and procedures, technology, performance measurement and management, or stakeholder communication. The recommendations are typically a short list. We're not into long laundry lists, 20, 30, 40 items. We like to keep it less than 10 when appropriate and when reasonable. They might be very tactical in nature. For example, we might suggest that your team needs some training on the importance of first contact resolution rate because your FCR is not very good. Or it might be a more strategic recommendation. For example, if you do not have a remote diagnostic tool, you've heard the names, BOMGAR, LogMeIn, GoToAssist, and others. If we believe that you can significantly improve your first contact resolution rate, your first level resolution rate, and reduce your contact handle time by adopting such a tool, and we believe that there's a business case to be made for adopting such a tool, we may recommend that. That would be a more strategic recommendation. We don't know what we're going to recommend until we get into your data, see your benchmark, and can evaluate it individually and come up with a set of recommendations for you. We will also provide performance targets. Now, this particular chart is just an example. The performance targets we establish for your service desk may not look like these, and we may not suggest performance targets for these exact set of key performance indicators. It really depends on where your performance gaps are. For this particular company, you can see that they weren't tracking first level resolution rate. One of their recommendations was you got to start tracking it, and we think that 85% is a reasonable target to hit within the next 90 days. Their first contact resolution rate was 57.6%, which was low. We felt that 75% was a reasonable number, again, to hit within the next 90 days. So this will be customized again, but it's important to point out that we will be establishing performance targets for each company that participates in the benchmark. Finally, what we're going to be doing is putting together a customized, individualized benchmarking report for each of the companies in the benchmark, and we will schedule time to present the results of your benchmark. We'll do that through GoToMeeting. We'll schedule time with you ahead of time, and we'll deliver a 2-hour presentation with Q&A. Regardless of where you are in the world, we'll do this at a time that is convenient for you. Now, in terms of deliverables, all of you will receive a project participation kit, which includes the project schedule and the data collection questionnaires. We will do an individual project kickoff meeting just for your company. We're not going to do a mass kickoff meeting with all the companies in the benchmark. We're going to do a meeting with your company where we have an open mic and you can ask questions as we go through the kickoff meeting. Your comprehensive benchmarking report will include an overview of the project along with the objectives of the project, some background on the industry and how it's evolving. your benchmarking performance summary for the busy reader that wants to read very quickly in 20 or 25 pages what were the results of the benchmark. That will be included in that section. Your balanced scorecard, your process assessment, conclusions and recommendations, and then the detailed benchmarking data, meaning the bar charts for each one of the 20-plus key performance indicators included in the benchmark, will be in that section of the report. And then we conclude with a live webcast presentation of results through GoToMeeting. Now, the fee to participate, if you have one service desk, is $7,500. If you have two service desks, you get a little bit of a price break. In fact, it's a pretty good price break. $12,500 for two service desk benchmarks. And then if you have three or more service desks, which some companies in this benchmark do, we have a fee schedule that we can share with you. The price continues to drop per service desk if you have three or more service desks participating. Now, very early on, I talked about syndicating this particular benchmark. Until now, companies in your industry, in the medical care field, who wanted to benchmark their service desk would call us up. We'd write a custom proposal. We would quote them a price, and then we would go do their benchmark for them. Those benchmarks were priced at $25,000. But because we have syndicated this benchmark, and we've got a large number of companies participating, we've been able to drive the cost down to just $7,500 for each individual service desk that participates, $12,500 for two, and again, if you have more than three or more service desks that would like to participate, contact us and we'll show you the complete fee schedule. In terms of next steps, I would encourage you to visit our webpage for the medical care benchmark, where you will find FAQs, frequently asked questions, and sample deliverables. You can always send questions to info@MetricNet.com, and of course, we want you to sign up for the benchmark. We've provided a link in here to do that. Let me just show you what the webpage looks like. Here is the web page for the service desk benchmark for medical care. You can see on this page there's the FAQ sheet, which you can download. You can see that there are sample deliverables, which you can also download and take a look at. If you want to look at the complete report, it's about 200 pages. And of course, when you're ready to sign up, we want you to pay for and purchase your benchmark. You can pay for it with a credit card. Here we go. Yeah, you can add your benchmark here. You can pay for it with a credit card or with a purchase order number. So you can purchase it right off the website with a credit card, or you can contact MetricNet with a purchase order number. Here it is. Proceed to checkout and so on. So we've tried to make this as convenient for you as we possibly can. If you'd like to pay for it with a credit card, you can, or if you would prefer to give us a purchase order number, just contact us, or when you're checking out on the checkout page, enter your purchase order number and you can purchase it that way. Okay. Let me remind you once again of the project timeline. We got started in November 2013, so we've already got a number of companies signed up and working on the benchmark. We're now at the end of January 2014. The sign-up and registration phase will continue right up through the end of March. We'll accept a sign-up on March 31st for somebody who would like to sign up, but the data collection questionnaire is also due on the 31st of March, so keep that date in mind. The month of April, MetricNet will consolidate all of this data. We will put together the individualized benchmarking reports for each company that participates, and then during the month of March, or excuse me, May, we will be presenting your individual results. So let me get to the Q&A. If you have any questions at all about what you've seen and heard today, please type them into the dialog box that appears in the lower right corner of your screen, and I'll answer those questions right now. Let me get to the first question here. Okay, from Wilma, our service desk is outsourced. Can we still participate? The answer is yes. In the data collection questionnaire, you will see, let me pull that up, that if you're insourced, you will fill out this tab. If you are outsourced, you will fill out that tab. So whether or not you're insourced or outsourced, you can absolutely participate in this benchmark. Okay, next question, when does the benchmark begin? The benchmark has already begun. It started in November last year, and we're continuing to accept registrations and sign-ups all the way through the end of March. Next question from, I can't read the name here, Jackson. Who can participate in MetricNet's service desk benchmark for medical care facilities? Any organization that operates a service desk in the medical care industry can participate in the benchmark. This includes service desks of all sizes and from all geographies, whether you're insourced or outsourced. Okay, question from Debbie. We have two help desks. One supports our internal corporate customers, and the other supports our network of 22 hospitals. Can both of these help desks participate in the benchmark? Yes, they can. The two desks are likely to have different performance characteristics because supporting a hospital, urgent care, clinical environment is different than supporting a corporate environment. So what we're doing is splitting out the peer groups, one for service desks that support clinical and one for service desks that support corporate. I hope that answers your question, Debbie. Okay, question here from Max. Can we purchase the benchmarking report if we don't submit data? Yes, you can, but let me qualify that. At MetricNet, since we are a benchmarking company, we get paid in data and dollars. And specifically what that means is that if you don't submit data, you're going to pay $15,000 for one benchmark. You're going to pay $25,000 for two benchmarks. So yes, you can participate, but you're going to pay more money because we will not have any data from you. So just keep that in mind. You're going to get a much, much better deal if you're willing to fill out the data collection questionnaire and contribute your data to the benchmark. Okay, next question here is, what will I receive by participating in MetricNet's service desk benchmark for medical care? I went through the deliverables a few moments ago. You can see that you're going to get a project participation kit, the kickoff meeting, the comprehensive benchmarking report, and the live presentation of results. Okay, next question. How does the data collection process work? I kind of answered that question already, but let me answer it again here. Each service desk that participates will be asked to fill out this data collection questionnaire, which you're looking at right now. Now, during the kickoff meeting with your company, we will discuss the data collection document with you. More importantly, the completed data collection questionnaire will be reviewed with you to ensure its accuracy and to discuss any data that we at MetricNet, in our experience, feel might be inaccurate or somehow inconsistent. So, and by the way, it takes, as I mentioned earlier, between 5 and 8 hours to complete the data collection questionnaire. Not an insignificant amount of time, but at the same time, you're not going to be spending days and days, let alone weeks and weeks, filling out this data collection questionnaire. Okay, next question, and I may have answered it already, but the question is this. We don't have all the data requested in the data collection spreadsheet. Can we still participate? And the answer is yes. We don't expect anyone to have 100% of the data requested. We simply ask you to complete the data collection questionnaire on a best efforts basis, and we will benchmark you as effectively as we can. Next question, will we know who the other companies in the benchmark are? Yes, you will, but you're not going to know which data belongs to which company. So although you'll know who the other healthcare companies in the benchmark are, the results are completely anonymous, so you will not know which data goes with each of the other companies. You'll know, for example, that company number 15 got the highest score on the balanced scorecard, or that company number 33 got the lowest score on the balanced scorecard, but you're not going to know who companies 15 or 33 are unless, of course, you are company 15 or company 33. Okay. Question here about how long it takes to fill out the data collection spreadsheet. I think I just answered that. Question, what are the fees to participate in the benchmark? I just mentioned that, $7,500 for one service desk, $12,500 for two service desks, and then if you have 3 or more service desks that are interested in participating, and I know some of you do because I've spoken with you before, contact MetricNet directly and we will provide you with the complete fee schedule. Next question, final question, so please type in any other questions that you might have. Next question is this. If we sign up today, can we start on the data collection questionnaire? Absolutely. You can start on the data collection questionnaire right away. As soon as you sign up for the benchmark, which means you either provide us with a purchase order number or you purchase the benchmark on our website, we're going to send you the data collection documents and also schedule a kickoff meeting time with you. Okay. Final question from Carolyn. Can we get a copy of your PowerPoint presentation to show our management? Yeah, absolutely, Carolyn. Thank you for asking. There's going to be a follow-up email sent out to everybody who was on today's presentation. And in that follow-up email, there will be a link that will take you to that presentation. That presentation is downloadable. It's in PDF format. So you will have a copy of today's presentation. So. Other questions? If you have a question, please type it in. Otherwise, we'll wrap up here. Okay. We've addressed all the questions that you typed in. Please don't hesitate to reach out to us if you have any additional questions. You can contact us at info@metricnet.com. Once again, you can go to the web page just follow this link that we have provided, this link up here, that is, that we provided, that will take you right to the web page with the FAQs, the sample reports, and the like for the benchmark for the medical care industry. And I want to thank you for participating in our briefing today. I do hope that each of you makes a decision to participate in MetricNet's Service Desk Benchmark for Medical Care. This concludes our information briefing. I want to thank you once again. Goodbye now. I hope to see all of you on our Service Desk Benchmark for Medical Care. Good day.